Greetings, friends, and welcome to episode 242 of the Projekt Gemineye update. So, I hope you're all doing good. Today is Sunday, June 8th, 2025, and as promised, now that I have an operational camera and can do things again, I'm going to do more videos. And here's another video. It's only a few days since I did the last one, so I'm on a roll. Today we're going to be talking about the first single from the singles series that's going to be coming out tomorrow, which is June 9th. That is ironically my birthday, of all things. I didn't even realize it fell into that sort of interesting situation where the birthday falls on the same day as the release date. But in any case, it'll be out tomorrow. And let me talk a little bit about that first song. It's called Force of Nature. I made some notes to talk about it, to give you guys some details about the song, etc., etc. So this song was influenced by memories of myself and my uncle when we went to Austria, walking through the city of Salzburg, I believe it was, and which was right near the mountains, the Alps. And I'll never forget walking through the streets there, and it would start snowing just out of nowhere. It was also, winter time. I believe it was like March or so, February, March. And it was just incredible how, snow would come out of just nowhere during that time period. And it just seemed like a force of nature. Like it would just happen at the drop of a hat. And sometimes it would be a, gentle snowfall. Other times I was told there was such a snowfall that would happen that, it could get crazy, like the amount of snow that could fall there. So I was always fascinated by that sort of intense snowfall, and the memory of that sparked this song. So, when I write songs, when I think of a memory like that, it usually takes me to a certain place mentally, and I pick up my guitar and start playing. The guitar of choice was my Les Paul. I've shown you guys that guitar quite a few times. I wrote it on the guitar, and I tracked all my rhythm guitars and the clean guitars with my Les Paul. Now, what did I use to record the guitars? Well, I used to use amps and stuff like that before, but now I will now be a long time devotee to this unit here, which is the Universal Audio Lion. This is the 68 line, which perfectly, I might add, recreates the Marshall 1968 Super Lead. Now, over here, there's little selector switches on it. This one here gives you 3 different settings. The very top one has it set to recreate a Marshall Super Bass amp. So that's more for like clean sounds, like kind of like a Jimi Hendrix sort of, the wind cries Mary kind of sound. The middle one is the true Super Lead 68 sound, and this one at the bottom is, it says Brown on there, which is the Brown sound, Eddie Van Halen, because Eddie had a Marshall that was modified, or claimed to have been modified, and it has a similar sort of settings on here where they recreated the whole setting with the Variac, where he dropped the voltage on there. There's a bit of an EQ adding on here as well, a little bit of a EQ curve that they placed in there, as well as there's also a bit of a gain boost in there as well when you select that. And there's, all these knobs have various controls. This is gain 1, gain 2, master volume. Over down here you have the EQ settings, low, bass, medium. But when you flip this to the middle, these knobs have different controls. All of a sudden one controls a boost, like if you were to have a distortion pedal in front of the amp, you would plug into the distortion pedal would go into the amp. It recreates that sound where you're pushing the amp a bit more for distortion. The middle has presence, which is like extra top end, but this is the way they did this presence is when you push the presence, it also bumps up the gain a bit, so it gives it a really awesome sound. And this is what they have is famously known as the room sound, where when the more you add it, it sounds like you have the amplifier in the middle of a studio room. The more that you add it, the more you can hear that room, like the bit of the echo or the reverb of the room as you add that. So it's a fantastic pedal. I record 2 guitars with that, left and right. And lately what I've been doing is I've been also adding 2 guitars. I've done that on this track as well, which is why I think the guitars sound so great, is I've also added this to my sound now as well, which is the TC Electronics 550. Now, what does this do? It's similar to that pedal, but what this does is this recreates the sound of a PV 5150 amp, which is much more heavier, much more distorted. Same ideas with the gains, the EQ. You know, there's a boost button down here as well, where you can add a bit of boost to it as well. But it's much heavier sounding. Like this is like Eddie Van Halen, circa like For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and those heavier sounding albums later on. So in combination with those two, when you blend them together, it gives you a really fantastic guitar sound. Also, what I tended to do with this time around, which really helped with this sonically, was I started doing something that I heard Kim Mitchell once talk about, where he would add a lot of low end keyboards, so like Taurus bass pedal stuff, like something like Chris Squire would do or Geddy Lee would do, where they would add low end bass stuff from the keyboard to fill in the low end. Because sometimes when they played the bass up higher, you wouldn't have as much low end and you would lose a bit of the low end space. So they would fill it in with keyboard bass stuff. And here, on this side here, I have my EX7. Now, I think I have it turned on here, and I'll show you the sound I use. It's called the Fat Octave, and the normal sound of it sounds like this. Now, what I would do with this is I would drop the octave. What I'll do is I'll show you how I do that. I push the button here, and then I drop the modulation wheel, and you'll hear the pitch drop down. Watch. Now I'll leave it to that dropped part, and I'll add low-end root notes into the song. So if the melody one, let's say, so I would fill in notes with this, and it would really add into the bottom layer and really give it a really nice sound in there. And I would put it in just loud enough so that you could feel it more than you could hear it. And it really helped fill in the sound of the song. So that was a big thing that helped with this as well. Also, just to make note here, the keyboard behind me, the RD8, I used for some of the Hammond organ sounds and stuff like that. There is a Hammond organ on this as well. I didn't use this one, but just to show you a sort of similar sound of it. Let's see if I can find one here. Yeah, so that's one sound, but then more like a. So there's like a sort of a Hammond organ sound that I use as well, very similar to that as well. And then I also use a unit called the Golden Age 1073, which is a microphone preamp that I used for my vocals and for some acoustic guitar stuff. Now, one of the most important things that I think I did for this song is I approached it very differently than I did some of my other songs, where I approached it, excuse me, you have to kind of understand that I sometimes have to use imagination to get myself into a creative space too, where I think to myself, okay, the drums, I envision them being recorded at a studio, okay, and I pictured the rest of the stuff being done at different studios. And what I mean by that is I would use different sort of channel strips within Pro Tools, because they have like a Neve channel strip, an SSL channel strip. These are all different kind of mixing consoles. So I would record the bass guitar, the rhythm guitars and clean guitars using the Neve channel strips. Then later on I would go back and do the vocals using, let's say, the Golden Audio preamp. So, and I would envision like that was done at another place. That's why the sound is different, right? Also, I would use, for example, the keyboards. I would use the API channel strips. That's a totally different console, hence gives you a different sound. And I would envision that those keyboards and the guitar solos were done at a different studio as well. Now, when you combine all those different tracks together, you can tell that the keyboards and the guitar solos have a little bit of a different sound than it would if it was recorded at, let's say, the studio that had the Neve console. This might sound a bit confusing, but for people who, like using plugins or like using, go to different studios, they would understand this sort of concept of it. And then in the end, I would mix it using, and I always use SSL plugins for my mixing. I've always been a believer that the SSL console is probably the best console to mix a record on. So I would take all my tracks in, line up a channel, line up about usually about 20 channels worth of SSL strips there, and I would put my drums, bass, everything, and mix it, add in whatever effects I need. Usually, I would record. I do record with compression, and I do record with a bit of EQ. I like to commit sounds to tape, as they say, even though I'm not using tape, but that's just a saying. I like to commit to my sounds right away, not add them in the mix. I like to, when I get to the mix part, I like to have everything pretty much there and just fine tune everything, which is different from what I did before. But that's why I think these songs turned out so good. And this song definitely benefited from this approach. So this song, which is again called Force of Nature, definitely benefited from this approach where I use different channel strips for different recordings. For the guitars and for the bass guitars, had different channel strips and so on and so forth. And I definitely added a different approach. I mean, one of my favorite records of all time, which is Hold Your Fire by Rush, that album was recorded in so many different studios. They did it at McClare Sound in Toronto, which I believe they did some of the bed tracks, like the drums and stuff like that, and a bass guitar. And then they went to Montserrat in the islands, Bahamas, like around there, to do the guitar tracks. Vocals were done in London, England. So that was kind of that idea where they went around and got into different environments to inspire themselves to do different parts of the record. And I kind of took that approach this way without ever leaving my little studio here. Okay, so that's basically how I approached this, and that's a little bit of a background on this song. I hope you enjoy it. Once again, it's going to be on my Bandcamp page. You'll see it in my Facebook. I'll make a post once it's up. There's no charge for the song, but once again, I'm going to leave it to name your price, as they say. And if you wish to contribute, I would appreciate it. You don't have to, but everything that I get from these upcoming singles will go directly towards the making of my next record, which is already recorded, believe it or not, and will come out later on this year. So anything that I get from these singles will go directly to that to get the wheels rolling, so to speak. So there you go. There's a little bit of background on the song Force of Nature and how I approached it and so on and so forth. And I hope you enjoyed this and enjoyed the examples. And I will do the same for the next song next week because I'll be releasing one song a week from now on for the next 4 weeks. Okay? So I hope you have a great day and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.